I request him to finish his paper presentation within 15 minutes. That would be followed by question answer session. Professor Agrawal, please.
Dr. Vibha Tripathi, Dr. Handa, and our senior professors and academicians of Indus University, as well as of this town. In fact, I'm feeling like homecoming. I have spent 25 years working at Physical Research Laboratory, PRL. So, Dr. Handa also insisted I come. Then I thought this will be very good to meet old friends, see our own lab. So, I have some sort of an attachment to this town. It is almost half my hometown. The rich scientific heritage of our country. You have university is named after Indus University. In fact, we have several volumes and papers on the science and technology of civilization. In fact, I have also written a book on the Harappan technology. Harappan and Indus is same. But today, we have also these two traditions of science. One is the elite tradition associated with the urban cultures like Indus civilization, Ganga civilization. On the other hand, this traditional knowledge system has been associated with rural life, small settlements. It was not that organized. But nonetheless, it was science in its own right. And let me remind you that science doesn't begin with Galileo or Newton. Science began on this planet when the first humans appeared. In their earlier form, of course. We call them Homo erectus, we call them Homo sapiens. And today, when we have run into problems in our civilization, in our urban life, we have pollution, we have all sorts of problems. Then we are again looking back at our traditional sciences, that maybe they have some remedy, maybe they have some solution. On the other hand, there are people who think there is something, some sort of superstition, some sort of primitive beliefs. It's not science at all. And I'm sorry to say that even in Uttarakhand, the state council, we had this experience, one of our fellows put up a proposal about the traditional medicine system, and she was really rebuked by them, our so-called scientists. Did you call it science? It's also superstition. Where is the proof? So what we are trying to tell is, no, on the other hand, I will come to this little later, the Western science and the international pharmaceutical companies, what they are doing. They come to our areas, hills, Western Ghats, even Amazon Valley. They simply take your medicines, take your flora, take your science, and then launch a product. Now, what they call, Amway company. If you try to bring out a regular medicine, there are lots of restrictions, procedures. You have to first do chemistry, then you have to do animals, then you have allowed to do humans, then only you can bring out a drug. But if you call it a nutritional supplement, then you can jump over all these restrictions. And that is what precisely MVA is doing. So this is our knowledge, this is our traditional knowledge, this is our flora, and dollars are being minted by even international companies. So when I meet Dr. Rajiv Mehrotra and others, this has become a very urgent problem in that area, and we call it biopiracy. That there is no protection. This international property law doesn't apply. That IPR protection has to be done and urgently, so that it cannot be exploited by these people. I will tell you this, you know adrak, this ginger seed, such a big company like Christian Dior, it has patented it. Our traditional knowledge, they have patented it. And this big vial of that wrinkle-free cream sells for $80. Then there is, again, a nutritional supplement for prostate condition. And there again, you know, in Hindi we call it bichu ghas, in English we call it nettle. So the juice of the root of this nettle, which is a wild sort of plant in our area, and it is used for all sorts of medicinal purposes, is put in this, and some 40, 50 tablets sell for 1,500 rupees. And it is effective. So what I'm saying is that if we, instead of these multinationals making so much of money, we can protect the IPR, the intellectual property rights of these. Then we can straight away, we can also call it this nutritional supplement and not a medicine. So this sort of shortcuts we can also apply. And I was telling you that we are not saying that this is an institution of science and technology. Talking here of traditional technology looks a little anachronistic, but it is not. Whatever was done by our ancients, and ultimately science, you know, how does science originate? Through interaction in nature, through observations, through trial and error experiments. This is how science originates. And that is what they have been doing. The Himalayan medicine system is so rich because it is a hot spot of biodiversity. There are 2,000 medicinal herbs. And there are records that this was so well known that even during the period of Ashoka's reign, these herbal medicines were being exported to Greece of all the places. So this is ancient. And not only this, I can quote many other medicines that are now, for example, for breast cancer, mammalian cancer. We have Taxol. So this is from, again, Uttarakhand herb, it's a little shrub, Taxus baccata. Again, traditional knowledge, our flora, and this is a patented drug by some international company. So, when we are talking about the traditional medicine system, what I am trying to emphasize is that it's not mere scientific inquiry. It's not mere pride in our ancient science. But this knowledge, which is an oral tradition, is not written down. It's not like Ayurveda. In fact, Ayurveda borrows 800 Himalayan traditional medicinal systems, medicines, 800 herbs, and uses it. And even Ayurveda doesn't give reference from where this knowledge came. This is all that oral tradition. So we need to protect it because this will go away with the ancient people, with the senior people. Unless we take urgent steps. So not only against the big companies like Glaxo, like Bayer and whatnot, but our own knowledge will be lost because this will go with the ancient people. And the other thing is, I also want to bring to your notice is that we, in our Uttarakhand, if you have a nano car company, you think that problems are solved, prosperity will come. The only way to develop such resource-rich areas in an eco-friendly manner, in an inclusive manner, which will bring prosperity to the people, is through traditional knowledge. And in fact, I have worked in physical research laboratory. We are in the forefront of science. Radiocarbon dating, we started here. Of course, Nobel Prize will be got in 56. But in 62, our radiocarbon lab was working here at Ahmedabad. But now we realize that this ancient science that we have there has a lot of relevance to modern life. I'll give you another example. Today we are talking of purifying Ganga on big scale. Of course, partly it is political because we all worship Ganga. But Ganga by itself is not the only thing. It has little streams coming all over from, if you come, suppose to Almora, and come to Haldwani, all along the river you have these dhabas, settlements, bazaars. Where does the drainage go? Into the river. There is this big Nainital lake. There is the big Bhinta lake tourist spots. Sometimes the tourists outnumber the local residents by a factor of 10. The drainage goes into the lake. The same lake gives you the potable water. They'll put some element, fitkari and this sort of thing. Water is purified. Enormous amount of disease caused by water. Now I'll give you this example. Our ancient people, they had plenty of rivers and they were not so polluted at that time. But they didn't use the river water for drinking. What they did, they harvested water near the hilltops, in little depressions. They were called chals and khals, that sort of thing. And used that big column of sediment and rock, about 2 kilometers thick, to filter that water. And some of the soluble salts got dissolved. So that was our real pure mineral water, not Bisleri. And we call them nalas. These are some spring wells, which you harvest it on the hilltop and tap it down below. It's pure water. We have taken profiles of the water, whatever. It's better than your Bisleri and all that. So what I'm saying is that why can't we use this water at least for distribution or for potable water? You know, when we used to be in Ahmedabad, it was very breakish. I stopped taking tea. But some enterprising people here, they soften the water and they sell every third day, they will give you a couple of carboys of softened water. It's pure water. It's hardly, it used to be 1 rupee a liter or so. We can all afford. This sort of system we can have there in Nainital, Almora, all these towns. Not only that, we have so much of area to harvest that this surplus water can be used to supply to the railways at Kathgodam. They don't have to put up big plants. We can supply it to big hospital chains like Apollo and Mac and such things. We can supply them to big hotel chains and earn money. So you can get pure water and this traditional knowledge can be used. So we have solutions for today's problems. It's very much relevant. It's not something that, some patriotic feeling, some feeling for ancient culture. No obligation on anybody. This is vital for our survival today. So, time is running fast. So our main point is that this traditional knowledge is science in its own right, very much relevant to today's life, and we need not reinvent the wheel again. Whatever we have invented, whatever we have learned, should be used. There was a lot of discussion in Western universities whether anthropology students should do PhD in ancient science, traditional science, and they are not getting any scholarships. So this Laura Nader, she's a professor there, her book has come out, Naked Science, and they fought with the Western science that this is science in its own right. They showed when our Western scientists backed Columbus went in search of US, India, he reached US and called them Indians. But they didn't know how to navigate. And they have shown that how these people who are fishermen in the Pacific, they have little islands, atolls they are called, at a distance of 10 kilometers from each other. They go to the sea for fishing for 10 days and can come back exactly to that little atoll. It's a very complex system of navigation. They use the halo of the clouds, the configuration of stars, the upwelling character of the sea, then what sort of birds are coming, what is the range of flight, whether they can go beyond 5 kilometers or not, then how the waves are making noise against the little canoes. All these things contributed to navigation, and they could navigate big seas, Pacific seas, etc. So there was a big fight, and she was one of the. So, whereas the Western science used to call traditional knowledge is some sort of superstition, even our Uttarakhand Council of Science and Technology said the same thing, even in 21st century. So, Western science imposes contrasting categories of science and religion, rational, magical, developed, underdeveloped, so on. So these are contrived. These alternative knowledge systems, these which we call traditional knowledge systems, include subsistence production systems, knowledge of ecosystems, logistics of subsistence, traditional methods of healing, and prophylaxis. As I told you, the only medicine for breast cancer today is based on traditional knowledge of the Himalayas. And there are so many. So if we can patent them, then we can earn a lot of money for the local people. So actually, we have to be very clear about the definition of science. In fact, knowledge and science originate where humans are in close contact with their environment. During the course of millennia, through trial and error, humans learned empirical science and transmitted it to progeny through the word of mouth and legends and myths. So UNESCO is trying now to integrate culture as a prerequisite for development design, to endeavor change in continuity, to respect people's way of life, thoughts for sustainable development. So that also integrates well, harmonizes well with our traditional culture. So UNESCO has this local indigenous knowledge. Aims to power local indigenous people in biodiversity, governance by recognizing their unique knowledge and practices. So anyway, there are a few other things which I thought we could show, but there are others in the queue. So they also need some time to talk. The only thing for conclusion I would like to say is that these people who have lived very close to nature, they have made observations, they have done trial and error experiments, and developed an oral science, which today is very much relevant. Whether it is harvesting pure water, or even if you want to purify Ganga, first learn how to use the water, how to harvest the pure water. And this polluted water should not go there. So in every aspect, we find the traditional knowledge has to be observed, learned, used, and wherever we can.
Professor Agrawal, can we conclude this now?
IPR, intellectual property rights.
वो सुनेंगे नहीं।
So that the West does not make a fool of us. It uses our knowledge, uses our flora, and mints millions. Thank you.
If there are any questions? No? Okay, then we move on to the next